recorded live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the Black Science Fiction Society.com website. Check it out, a lot of content. This is the October 7th edition, 2016. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but the year has flown by. Summer flew by. And now I'm really getting a little depressed when it gets dark at like 6, 7 o'clock at night. Tonight we have our special guest is Lisa, and let me do this right, Bolekaja, right?
Bolekaja, yeah.
Oh, okay, and I actually interviewed her about 3 years ago, well, maybe just under 3 years ago, but I see her name everywhere, and we were discussing. I mentioned that I had seen her name when I was at Worldcon, or it was brought up. And one of the things that we were just talking about before the show started was at Worldcon, I was I guess privileged enough to moderate the panel on Afrofuturism. So there were a lot of cool people on my panel. I mean, just about we know everybody who was on the panel. I had actually been with Cerise Rennie Murphy, one of the people who was on the panel with us, down at Florida A&M when they had their Black to the Future Literature Fest, and so it was pretty interesting. But one of the things that I found, Worldcon has been embroiled in a controversy, a multi-year controversy, and this is where they vote for the Hugo Awards for science fiction excellence in writing. Excellence in writing science fiction, and so they have really taken some very, very forward-looking steps in addressing Worldcon's up until now lack of diversity. There was some discussion about it because all their special guests this year were white. And even though I had a panel on Afrofuturism, I was privileged enough to have Dr. Tony Brown. I think it was Tony. I don't. I'm looking for the list because I can't remember. But I had a white South African who writes science fiction. He writes multi-ethnic science fiction, and he gets periodically he gets censored in South Africa. There's a lot of censorship that still goes on, even though supposedly apartheid has ended. But it's tough to end, cultural kind of imperatives that have been going on for so long. So I had a very, very Nick Wood. Okay, here we go. I had Nick Wood, who was the South African. Bill Campbell, he owns a publishing house, and he publishes a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Cerise Rennie Murphy, she's an author, and she was on a panel with me. Well, she was actually an honored guest along with me at Florida A&M a couple years ago for their Black to the Future Literature Fest. But we had one of the things that I thought really fit in with Worldcon's desire to seriously address the diversity problem was, first of all, this panel. And I know when people walked in and they saw a white guy on the panel, they were wondering, well, what the heck's going on here? But we had standing room only in the discussion, the panel discussion, it was absolutely silent, and really nobody left early. Sad part is the panel discussions were only about 50 minutes long. So one of the things that I'm going to propose for, not next year because it's in Helsinki, but I think it's coming back to San Diego after that. So I'll probably be asked to participate then. But one of the things that I want to do, because diversity is important and they've made that commitment, is to see if they would extend the panel to be either 2 hours or more, because there were so many people there who were genuinely interested. And one question that came up just blew my mind. Somebody asked, do I need to know much about Black culture to read Black sci-fi? And it took me a second to think about that, and finally my answer was no. I mean, what do you know about Venusians when you read sci-fi? What do you know about, the people who came to kick our ass in Independence Day?
About Martians?
Yeah. So, anyway.
What's interesting is the conversation that you're bringing up is really important because I don't know if you saw the report. Hey, fam, everybody out there, even though I'm on here with Genesis Science Fiction Radio, I feel like I've been with the family for years. So this isn't like a special guest. This is me like, hey, fam, Coming to visit some cousins. How y'all doing? But one of the things I think is really, really important that people need to understand, I don't know how many of the listeners out there had a chance to read the report that Fireside Fiction did a few months back. They did a very specific study. They did some research on not just people of color in science fiction, but in particular, Black people. And what they found was they looked at every single major magazine and online places that were publishing, like the big name places, and they found, surprise, surprise, that they weren't, people weren't publishing Black people. There's all this call for diversity, but a lot of times what they realize is when we call for diversity, a lot of times other groups get through, but when it really comes down to is the litmus test is how many Black people are you publishing? And sadly, a lot of magazines fell short. I read Slush for APEC magazine, which is one of the magazines that was part of the study. And
sure.
I would like to say this to our listeners out there and our peeps over at Black Science Fiction Society. Can I cuss on here? Are we allowed to cuss or no?
We try to go PG-13.
Okay, I'll go PG. Fam, send your stuff to Apex, because one of the things that we're finding is that a lot of writers are self-censoring. But at the same time, though, we do realize a lot of us are sending things out, and that sometimes it's the gatekeepers that are keeping a lot of things out because there might be something like a Black aesthetic. And I've noticed a couple times, and I'll be honest, I've read some things where I felt like, this needs to be published right now. Oh, my God, this is like the best thing. Like I'm almost secretly like stalking, writers that I've read I think are excellent. Like, let me see what else they've got out here. And sadly enough, a lot of times their stuff does not get published in our magazine, or I don't, it's just the way it is. And I almost feel like that you got to have people behind the scenes. And so one of the things that I've made an effort to do by reading for Apex and for being part of the conversation that's been happening on social media is to encourage those people. And since we're talking to our peeps, Black folk, send your stuff in regardless, because there are those of us who are reading it who are hungry and looking for it. And a lot of times what happens is when we tell writers to do research on the magazines, a lot of times this is what we do. We read, but we don't see no stories that kind of look like us, and we think, oh, they don't want our stuff. And a lot of times that's not necessarily true. Like I'm constantly reading things. And I'll be honest with you, when it comes down to science fiction, especially when it comes to publishing, short stories and books, I stand for Blacks and Natives. Because we're Afro-Indigenous. So I'm constantly looking for things. I mean, I look for everybody else's stuff, too, when it's excellent and great. But I'm really hungry to see more of us submit things in there because I'm looking. And I'm trying to encourage a lot more of my friends who are writing to go behind the scenes and try to do things like publishing. Bill Campbell is a great example. He flipped around and said, look, I'm writing my stuff, but nobody's publishing it. Guess what he did? He created his own publishing company. In fact, last year he published one of my really good friends, Jamie Go. He published their book with her co-editor, and they put The Sea is Ours, which is basically Southeast Asian science fiction steampunk. And he's published all kinds of things from different groups. The Afro, what's the book that came out a couple of years ago? Mothership, the Afrofusion Tales from Mothership. So he just went out and started publishing his own things. I know a lot of us are self-publishing because we're just not getting published in the mainstream, things. But at the same time, we need to submit too, because I'm one of those people that is actively looking and pushing for that. So like I said, if people are interested, go check out that study that Fireside Fiction did, because what it did was it opened up a conversation that people have been having. I mean, there's been talk on Twitter and Facebook and other social media about we need diverse books, we need diverse voices. But the Fireside Fiction study was the first one done that was specifically about Black writers. So it was really powerful, and it was very eye-opening because a lot of people realized that, even though they were pushing diversity, they weren't publishing a lot of Black people.
Right. I just dropped the link.
Oh.
Yeah, I dropped the link in the chat room. But for those people who pick this up as a podcast, you're just going to have to do a Google search for it.
Right. And you can go on. You can also look on, if you're on Twitter, you can follow Fireside Fiction and look through their thing. So and it's not just happening in just fiction writing and book writing. We're seeing on TV, and I know how many of us have finished watching Luke Cage and the conversation that's been happening in terms of Luke Cage being too Black.
Well,
and this speculative fiction world, And we've had Daredevil, we've had Jessica Jones, and nobody blinked an eye. But as soon as you have something that a black creator has put together and it's centered in blackness, even though it's in the speculative world, white folks was uncomfortable. And I was like, really, really not okay. I wasn't shocked, but I think I was surprised at how open they were about it.
Let's look at the big picture. You know, the prevailing wisdom of white publishing companies, and most of them are owned by white people, especially the top tier. But you know, their contention and the gatekeeper's contention is that black science fiction, black themed work is not a big seller, and Luke Cage broke Netflix. Okay,
listen,
so many people were screaming. Exactly, that it broke Netflix. So what does that say? Does that say that every black person, you know, on the planet was going to get Luke Cage? Obviously not. Obviously not. You know, so the thing is, fighting these stereotypes that are so damaging and so the opposite of inclusive. You know, it's ridiculous, because there was also a study done in Hollywood a year ago, and they looked at the revenue for movies that had all-white casts and movies that had multiracial casts, and they found out that the revenue is higher when you have a multiracial cast.
I mean, great examples would be like, was it Furious 7, the last Furious 7 movie, where it was like 6 of the 7 main characters were people of color, you know, and like 4 of them were black men, and it was like it made a gaggle of money. And like these other movies that have been coming out with no people of color in it whatsoever, they're barely breaking bank. Like they hoping that when it goes to streaming and maybe videos and stuff like that, they'll recoup their money back, you know. But if you're coming out, even on a TV show, if you're coming out with TV or a movie or something, and you don't have, and it's not just one person of color in the background, if you don't have something that's totally like not all white, you're not going to make no money. And the numbers are there, and they've been proven consistently. So people are not stupid. That's why you're noticing all of a sudden you get these shows, and all of a sudden you look at the posters and things that are advertising for it, and it's like, oh, my God, look at all these wonderful people of color we have. Like, they realize we need to hit up everybody. A great example was last week, shout out to Geek Soul Brother who hooked it up for me. HBO was doing their premiere for Westworld. And one of their VPs, who's a wonderful woman, Jackie, they invited different podcasters to come through. So I do a podcast called Screenwriters Rant Room with my really good friend who's a writer, producer, director, Hilliard Guest. And so they were having different podcasters from East Coast to West Coast to come in, watch the premiere, and then have a panel discussion about the show. And one of the things that they were really pushing was the diversity of the show. I don't know how many people have watched the first episode of Westworld. The second episode's coming up this Sunday. It's a really good show. I was able to see the first 2 episodes and was privy to some of the screenings for some upcoming things that are coming, and it looks really good. It's got some really good actors in it. I have some things that I'm concerned about, mainly because it's Westworld, sci-fi, the Wild West, and so anything that has to do with the Wild West, my first thought is black people, natives, women. How's that going to work out? You know, well, but I think they're on the right track. I think they're trying, but the big push was, and the selling point to get us podcasters to really be interested in doing this was diversity. Like, had this come out and it was like no people of color, I don't think, honestly, any of us would have been interested in checking it out. And when it premiered last week, the numbers are pretty good, but, you know, Luke Cage was burning up everything. So it didn't matter who came out. Luke Cage is going to obliterate you anyway.
Well, and to ignore the fact that part of what's going on is not, well, no, let me not do double negatives. To ignore the fact that part of what's going on is political is also a little short-sighted and ridiculous, because the fact of the matter is a lot of what's going on in terms of denying black artists, you know, a place in the culture is political. You know, there's so much of a backlash from bigoted, well, let's just say small-minded whites, that we had a half-black president elected and then reelected. And there's been a lot of backlash about that, a lot of cultural backlash, because look at all of these really, 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 I would say, strident racists out there who insist all kinds of. I mean, look at Donald Trump. He insisted that Barack Obama was not an American citizen for how many years now? 5, 6 years. So people, because television and even movies, they're a fairly risk-averse industry. You know, nobody wants to be the person who greenlights something that all of a sudden is going to create a racial backlash. I think that's one of the reasons why Luke Cage, other than having a little more editorial and creative freedom by being a downloadable rather than broadcast show, you know, you can be a little looser with the language and things like that. Plus, let's see, I've already read 2 really big objections by whites that blacks use the N-word in there. You know, it's like, well, that's part of the culture. That's the writing.
And
that's the
in the show, the black people in the show have a conversation amongst themselves about who uses it and who doesn't. So
exactly. But the other thing is you know, they've been pissed off since Richard Pryor took the word away from whites and gave it to blacks and said whites can't use it anymore. And that's essentially what happened. And you know, I hate to say this, but if you tell somebody white in America that they can't have something, they can't do something, they can't say something, they really do lose their minds, because white entitlement is a huge problem, and it's a huge problem in publishing, it's a huge problem in television, in movies, in the arts, except for the fact, the very funny fact, that American urban culture rules the world. There is no other culture on the entire planet that has as many adherents and as many followers as black urban culture. So it's a very, very strange dichotomy.
I would say this. If you don't have black people in your country anywhere on the planet,
right,
you're losing. You are losing. Wherever black people have gone.
Not only that, but I'm living in the wrong place if that's the case. Yeah.
I mean, everywhere we've gone, we've influenced the culture heavily.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's no surprise that our culture goes through and impacts it. What's different now, and the fear, we're talking about the fear, white fragility, we're also talking about the white fear narrative. What's happening is the whole idea of the narrative. For a long time, a lot of white content creators have controlled the narrative of what stories are to be. So saying that, it is that white suburban angst, whatever, has been the norm for so long. What has changed is social media and the idea that people can talk to each other in real time and basically shut stuff down. Case in point, there was a TV show that within 72 hours of it being announced, it was a show about based on a true story. I think it's like Mail Order Bride or something like that, but it was about a white dude who orders a Filipino woman from a magazine to become his wife. And it's based on a true story of this white woman whose father divorced her mom, went to the Philippines, brought a Filipino woman, married her, and basically her show is going to be a comedy about that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Within 72 hours of NBC coming out saying, hey, we got this new show, Asian Twitter, Asian social media, shut that shit down. They shut it down. They shut it down and basically said, we don't like this. This is not cool. And NBC, listen, in the past, that show would have came out. And no one, they might have been gotten a letter from somebody with the old addict of one letter equals maybe 1,000 people, but they would ignore it. But because it was such an uproar so quickly, somebody's writing career did not take off because of that. So there's power now in people speaking truth to power and shutting things down, saying that's not the narrative that you're going to put out there again. We're shutting you down. So that's consistently happening. With the whole thing with, for example, this summer when I was on my way to Nebula Awards, I had a couple of friends that were nominated. So I'm going to go whoop, whoop, because, a lot of my friends, they come from marginalized communities. And it was like a wonderful thing to see people of color, my gay and queer fam, all those people who normally don't get accolades, their work was being heralded and potentially winning. And when I was on my way there, I got out the airport, and a couple of my Twitter friends, we were just talking about Black Panther, and next thing you know, it's like we, put out this hashtag, Black Panther So Lit. I kid you not. From the moment I was in the airport when we first started talking about what we going to call it, well, let's call it this, and let's start tweeting about how we going to be when Black Panther comes out. Mind you, the movie ain't coming out for 2 years, okay?
Right. This
is me and a bunch of Chadwick and Chill came up with the name, and just a bunch of us who were already blurs anyway. Like, okay, we're going to tweet all this stuff out and have fun. For like 8 hours that day, the moment I got off the plane and was like in a taxi cab to go to the hotel, finally turned my phone back on, it had blown up. It was like the number one trending thing, and it trended for like almost a whole day. And it was just the joy, the black joy of black people anticipating seeing a black superhero with black people in it, like real black people, like Lupita, all of that. And it was just so much fun. And people were so shocked because they're like, the movie is not even coming out for 2 years. And we already hyped, you know? So the hunger is there. I think the powers that be are recognizing that. They're not moving as quickly as we would like to because they still have to hold on to this idea that the white narrative is the right narrative when they're slowly realizing, well, darn it, we better start, you know, branching out. You're going to see a lot of that pushback coming back. A lot of people, I've got some of my Twitter peeps who are clowning the new Danny Rand, the whole Iron Fist thing, you know, the whole controversy about, well, maybe you want to change stuff and get a real Asian dude. So I have one of my Stephanie. Hey, Stephanie, shout out to her. She calls him like Coachella Fist or something, and somebody else calls him Frosted Fist. And basically, they were just like upset that, you know, we're going to have this show, sitting around this white dude doing karate. All the Asian people are going to be probably bad guys and stuff. But the TV show is going to happen. Now, whether or not it's going to have the same, I don't know, fan squealing as Luke Cage did, I don't know. There's going to be those of us who are going to be curious anyway because we grew up with the whole Iron Fist thing. Some people are hoping that the Misty Knight from the Luke Cage will get with this one. I doubt it. I've seen the dude who's playing, you know, Danny Rand. I'm like, I don't know. The chemistry might not be there. You know, it's going to be interesting to see the reaction. But what I'm telling people now is we have a huge impact by voicing our opinion on social media because the powers that be, they are listening.
Well, and the other thing that I was just thinking while you were going through that, you know, now, you know, as we sit here, Black Twitter is a thing. You know, this is something that has come out recently.
Black Twitter will make you lose your job. Black Twitter will make you lose your job.
Absolutely. Black Twitter can make you go broke. You know, so and to actually have, you know, that kind of power is something that is brand new in our culture. You know, it's not marching up and down the street, you know, we shall overcome, singing, you know, let the dogs bite us and stuff like that. This is armchair activism that actually works, and that can't be discounted anymore. Well, look what Twitter made Disney. Didn't they just pull a costume from being sold? Because
the new wonderful. I want to see it. I can't help it. Oh, what is it called? I should know the name of it because I want the doll. It's the one with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. It's the Polynesian one.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to remember all those things because I'm way too old to keep track of all that actual stuff.
I'm looking at it.
Here it is. Manoa. Is it Moana?
Oh, Moana. Okay.
Yeah.
Moana. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So Disney. Okay, listen, people. This is what happens.
That's huge.
When you don't have people of color on your board when they're doing toys to tell you, hey, we're going to make this costume for Halloween. Not only is it blackface, it's going to be Polynesian skin. Basically, kids can dress up with a wig, and they can put an entire suit with tattoos all over it and a grass skirt, and you too can be. And when I saw that, I remember I tweeted out a lot of, you know, it was so incredible. Like all the stuff we tell people not to do. Like the first stuff that went through my head was, who got fired on Disney for letting us slip through? Like who did that? Like it was so wrong on a certain level that I almost felt like they trolling you. They just put that out there to see what we would do, and it was like, why would you?
It was really unreal. It was unreal because you have to say how insular had that white person been to think that was a good idea.
I mean, if you want to do like a cute little grass skirt or a little outfit that Moana wears, the toys and stuff like that, and a little, you know, whatever, you know, little things that you could put on, but not a whole skin suit. It was a skin suit, people. You zip it up and it had that tat. It was like black body face. I don't know how to explain it. And it was so wrong on so many levels, and so many people clapped back at Disney that they had to pull the product. They were like, we're going to pull this off. And you know they was counting on making so much money. But because of that social capital, people clapped it back saying, that's not cool, they pulled it. So slowly but surely, there's some power that we can achieve just by speaking, speaking our truth openly and telling people that's not cool. Even in the Polynesian community, they, even though they have the criticisms about the animated cartoon in terms of the authenticity, I mean, those are conversations you're going to have automatically no matter what. But that one in the costume was blatant.
Yeah, I also think that, because of that humongous power you have in social media now, no matter who you are, whether you're, political, whether you're, it's a race thing, whether it's a class thing, a gender thing, there is so much power there because every single voice is equal in that setting, and it's the preponderance of the crowd that really sets the tone. I had another great point and I just forgot it. It'll come back. But before we get too much further,
okay,
let's talk a little bit about you.
What's been going on? I know it's been a minute.
Well, let me do this. Let's start from the beginning. When you think of yourself as a creative, how do you self-identify? Do you think of yourself as no, I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to suggest something. When you think about yourself as a creative, what is your what would you consider? I don't want to say specialty, but at least what's your mainstream genre, medium, kind of where do you work?
Like, what's your thing, girl? I know. It's funny because a few years ago when I was really getting deep into doing what I was doing, which was screenwriting, writing fiction, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Lately, though, because of my loudness, my black on purpose on Twitter and Facebook and different places, what I realize now that I'm starting to become more of a cultural critic.
Okay.
And analyzing the culture, because I feel like the creative part of me, I'm still a writer, I'm still a screenwriter. Like I said, I do the podcast with Hilliard, Screenwriters Rant Room, where we talk about screenwriting, the craft of it. We have different producers and directors and writers that come in, and we just chop it up and give, real talk. On top of that, I write film criticism and analysis for Bitch Flicks, which is like an intersectional film criticism where basically I just go in. So unlike Variety and all those other places that may do a film review about the movie, we go a little bit deeper and bring a little bit more history and a little more subtext to the critiques of films. And on top of that, my work with Apex. But now I'm thinking I'm moving more into, which I think is important, is having that black voice that is going to narrate and control the narrative of what the culture is. For a long time, I've noticed in media is we have a lot of people who make comments. For example, there was the one guy who wrote, I think it was either the Washington Post or New York Times, where the guy did a review and a critique of Luke Cage and basically said that Luke Cage should just have been a side character, that he wasn't deserving of a show entirely about him, that he's better off as being the sidekick for Jessica Jones and stuff like that. And that writer got dragged, as she should have been. And that's when it really started to solidify for me wholeheartedly, is the idea that we need more people of color doing the critique work and talking about narratives on our own. So I think I'm more or less moving into that vein. I'm still going to do my writing. I'm still doing the screenwriting and stuff. And in fact, I'm working with the script with my friend now and just, plotting stuff out and getting the writing done. I've got a couple of scripts I'm working on now and trying to finish up another book. And, I'm writing and doing my creative stuff, but I find myself feeling like it's more important for us to control the narrative of what is being said and what is being critiqued about the culture that we create, especially when it comes from black folks in science fiction, genre fiction, that kind of thing. So, I don't know. Cultural critic,
it's also easier for you to wear those different hats because the threshold of getting your words out is much, much lower than it was even 10 years ago.
Right.
Way, way lower than it was 20 years ago. For you to have had that kind of cultural impact and to have that voice be heard as much as it is now. And like I said, I see your name all over the place. And it wasn't possible until just recently for you to be able to wear all those hats and do it effectively. That's the other thing. We've had a lot of half-ass editors, a lot of half-ass reviewers, a lot of half-ass commentators, do a lot of things. And so if you read bad stuff and you're sitting there fuming, going, "This person's an effing idiot,"
Right.
you know, you didn't have the opportunity to put your words out there in a way that in rebuttal to something stupid. So
Right.
I think this is perfect for you. I mean, you've got obviously you have the cultural background in which to give substantive response to things that are going on. And I don't mean cultural background because you're a woman, because you're black, because you're this, because you're that, but because you have a body of work
Right.
that is representative of the perspective from which you speak. So,
and I've also been really more assertive in terms of when I'm going to different cons now, getting onto panels. Because before, you know, I go to a lot of cons, and a lot of times I'd be that person, that nerdy person in the back, because when I go to cons, I'm a hot mess. I want to see everything. I have my notebook. I'd be writing stuff. And over the last couple of years, I'm like, you know, I need to get up here and tell some people some stuff, because, you know, I'm hearing certain things that are coming from certain audiences from a certain background, but they're not hearing it from us. I was really excited. Every year I go to WisCon, which is the feminist science fiction convention that's in Madison, Wisconsin. It happens every May during, I want to say, is it Memorial Day weekend? Is it Memorial Day weekend in May?
I don't remember. I'd have to do the Google thing, but you know, I went to that.
Anyway, it's wherever the holiday is in May, it's always that holiday, and I've been going for the last. This will be my 5th year coming up, and every year, I'm also on the steering committee of the Carl Brandon Society. We are an organization that helps really give notice to people of color who are writing science fiction and fantasy. We also facilitate the Octavia E. Butler Scholarship. For any person of color who applies and gets into Clarion, you can apply for the Octavia E. Butler Scholarship and help cover your tuition for that. So the Carl Brandon Society, every year, we always have a people of color dinner at WisCon. And this past year, it was like the biggest one we had. There were so many people of color at our dinner. Like when I first started going, I think the first one I went to, I think there might have been like maybe 15 or 20 of us in the room.
Sure.
This past year, I think we were close to like 100 of us. Like we had bumped up the scale. There were so many people of color that had come to the WisCon conference, and a lot of them were brand new. I realized that we really need to start putting ourselves on panels and doing things because we're there. We've always been there, but it was like really, really blatant, like I need to start getting on here and talking about stuff because, like I said, when I go to WisCon or different conferences and you go in there, they'll have these great panels, but I don't see us a lot of times on the panels. Or if I do see us, it's the one black person they know, and that poor black person is on every single panel. Okay, I have to lie. This past, I think it was church I went to, I was my first time going to Northwest Con, and I was invited to come do the horror panels. And I was so excited because it's so rare that I get to just go on panels and just talk about horror all the time. So they said, you can do as many panels as you want. And I'm like, okay. And they said, okay. And then if there's a certain number, you know, we'll see if you can get on them or not. So, you know, they kind of like control how many you can do. I did like 11 panels at Northwest Con. Like I'm doing like 5 panels a day. I loved it. I was exhausted. But I was ecstatic because, one, I wasn't just doing panels on diversity. I was talking about horror from a black perspective.
Sure.
And that carries a lot of weight. And it was a really successful con for me because a lot of people come up afterwards and like, we would love for you to come back because you have some shit to say. You have some stuff to say. And I said, yes. And that's when I realized we really need, those of us who have been in this game for a while, we really need to start actively putting ourselves on panels, creating panels. Every con you go to, usually months in advance, they put out a call for panels. So if you want to do a panel, you know, you have to submit it and give an idea what it'll be. A lot of times, a lot of cons have almost too many panels. Well, you might not get your panel on this coming year, but you might be able to get one the following year. But I found that if we start creating those panels, if we start participating in panels, I think just like we do with Twitter and Facebook and Tumblr and all those other social media where we have such a huge impact with our voice, I think the same thing can be done when we bring a different narrative. And I'm telling you, people out here is shook. Sam, they is shook. They have never in the history of the white narrative have ever had so much pushback. I mean, I think of every single movie or TV show or product that comes out, and the PR department is like, okay, how is this going to look for everybody else? A great example. I don't know how many of you guys do you guys remember that book that just came out? The white guy who did it. It's Underground Airlines. Are you familiar with that book that just came out?
No, I'm not.
No. Well, Sam, Google it. Basically, there's a white writer who wrote the sci-fi book, and basically it's a futuristic tale in which basically slavery still exists, but they send a black character to basically, how it sounds, it's the Underground Airlines. Instead of using trains, they're using planes to try to rescue black people. Now, when they started, I'm telling you, go Google that, go look at it. Now, the marketing when the marketing came out, the writer himself, he came out and said, I didn't say for them to say all that. But the marketing that came out was like, this is the most courageous and brave assessment of science fiction and slavery and blah, blah, blah. And, of course, me and a bunch of other heads was like, well, what about Octavia Butler and everybody else who's been doing this for a while? All of a sudden, this story from a white writer is all of a sudden the most courageous, book on science fiction and slavery and all kinds of stuff. And we're sitting there going, no. And basically, that got dragged for a moment. Like, stop coming out with product without questioning whose narrative you think it is the supreme narrative. And I'm telling you, they shook. So, we'll see. I'm excited about a lot of the conversations that are going on. I know this year the sad puppies and the rabbit puppies were upset again because they got shut down from the awards and things once again. But that's kind of a good thing. It's like, even with all the negative things that are being said, what has been shown is that the tides are changing and they are never going to go back to the bad old days ever again. And it's up to us, it's not. It can't. It's never going to do that.
No, it's not. The rabbit's out of the hat. And the other thing that was very, very interesting to me was sight unseen, unless somebody really did deep Google on me, they had me, nobody knew me, but the WorldCon people had me moderating 4 panels and on a couple more, and so I think they did that because I filled 3 different diversity slots, being half black, half Japanese, and a lesbian living in a man's body.
We can check everything off the boxes. He's everything.
Exactly. Oh, let's get this one guy. He takes up everything. Yeah, but I have to admire. I wasn't there for the awards ceremony there, but it was not like the year before where, man, the thing went to midnight. It was being streamed. Your little puppy people were. So obviously there are people who are devoted to making changes. Of course, they're not going to happen as fast as we would love them to happen, like every day. But to what you said earlier, getting on panels, being visible, going to what are traditionally white venues, and having a presence, is going to make a difference. And then the questions, like the question the guy says, well, do I have to know anything about black culture to understand black sci-fi? There are breakthrough moments where people are wondering things that to you and me are patently ridiculous, but yet are serious on their part. So, for my part, I didn't belittle this person. I didn't say anything demeaning or anything, that's really unusual for me, because I'll take a cheap shot whenever I can get it. But well, no, I will. But when he said that, he was and there were people nodding their heads. Yeah. So that's the other thing that we have to overcome, and this is kind of on our part until people just start naturally going, oh, an interesting story by here's that Hayashi guy, or here's here's that Davis guy, or whoever.
Right.
It is that it has to be conveyed somehow, and I'm not sure what the perfect means to do it is. It has to be conveyed somehow that creatives are creatives, and the diversity part is a different slant, a different flavor, something you might not get otherwise, not a foreign language. Reading black themed science fiction is not trying to learn French so that you could read French poetry, So that's the other part, because we've been portrayed as other for so long that's just in the lexicon of American culture.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we are other, but we're not alien other. We're not foreign other. We're not a whole nother language other. So black people white people are uncomfortable with how black people speak, and we have so many white rappers who kind of mess things up, and you laugh at them because of them trying to emulate us. But I think that dichotomy has to be broken down so that the larger white culture realizes that no, this is just different flavor. Okay, you can eat Mexican, you can eat Chinese, you can eat black, you can eat Cajun, but it's all food and it all nourishes you. And I think that's the way that I would like to convey, the creative efforts of non-whites.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like I said, things are changing slowly but surely. I'm really curious. A lot of the fiction that's coming out, like I said, because Fireside Fiction came out with that study with the lack of number of black writers that are being published, I'm really going to be curious in 2017 how many more are really looking to get those new voices. There are a lot of new writers that are coming out left and right who are black, who are starting to get some pull out there. It's wonderful. A lot of them I know. A lot of them are brand new people, and I'm excited about it. I don't know. I'm just really curious to see, now that the flashlight's been on, the lights are turned on, we're like, aha, you guys are doing this. We need to see more. I'm really curious to see how things are going to happen within the next year. I'm really curious in terms of once this election is over, how things are going to happen. There's just so much. I mean, I feel like this last year has been so surreal with this election that I think black science fiction is needed more than ever. In all forms, film, TV, everything, just for us to get a sense of what the new normal is going to be. Because no matter what my opinions on of Barack Obama, or whatever his politics are, I have to say, I'm going to miss having a black family in the White House. I felt like we finally had some adults taking care of the house for a little bit, and I'm going to be sad to see them go. At the same time, I don't know what new whiteness is going to come in and try to, I don't know. I just feel like I'm living in an Octavia Butler Parable of the Sower moment. Like, this is Parable of the Sower. It is happening like she foretold it, 20-some-odd years ago, that this is going to happen. And I'm just trying to really wrap my head around what's going on, especially with all the things that are going on with Black Lives Matter. I'm from San Diego. We just had another person, the brother from Uganda, who was just shot down here, Alpha Longo, who was shot 10 minutes away from where I live, And San Diego has always been, as I was growing up, has always been known as the Mississippi of the West. We're known as we're known as the America's finest city, but it's a pretty conservative town. We live in pockets. Like, I can tell you where the black people, Mexican people, I can tell you where we live. Like, there are areas. Like, there's nothing mixed in here. And dealing with that and all the other police things that have been going on, the politics of all of that, just so many things have been going on. I almost feel like I want to, take a vacation from America, and I think I need black science fiction to help me get through this weird, because I really feel like these are surreal times. I feel like I'm in a weird, like that movie Brazil. I just feel like I'm just in this weird, surreal world.
Alternative world, yeah.
It's alternative. It's weird,
Yeah, but think about the cool thing that is going on. Now we have a generation of black kids who have never known a white president. We've got 8-year-old kids out there, 9-year-old kids, 10-year-old kids who have never known a white president. They've only known America with a black president.
I want to do a scientific experiment on those kids and check in with them 15 years from now.
Well, let's see, who is this? Oh man, hold on. Let me do a little. But someone did a movie. I apologize because I really do am. I had a car accident in August, and it's funny. I had it on a Friday, and so this happens at 3:30. and in the afternoon, and then I get on the radio to do this show. And at about 8:30, I'm thinking about, I got stuff to do. I got laundry downstairs. So, I just get up out of my chair and go downstairs. So anyway, I'm not thinking exactly right, but it's Kevin Wilmot. He did Destination Planet Negro, which was hilarious. Some black folks from the night. Do you know about the movie? Okay, so in 1939, some African-American leaders, they respond to the Jim Crow segregation thing by building a rocket so that all the black folks can go to Mars. So a few of these people get in the rocket, not the whole, to go to try the trip out. And what happens is they come to the future to 2010 by accident. And so, they go to a barber shop and they see Barack Obama's picture on the wall. They go, well, who is that? Well, that's the President of the United States. And they just fall out laughing because that stuff is just crazy,
Mm-hmm.
And to look at it through those eyes and then to look at what's going on now, there's too much that should never have happened. It's just too surreal. It's too
right.
That it's hard. It's just hard to fathom how we got where we got. But I think the one thing, the overarching thing that people have to remember is when you look at what's going on, 85% of the nonsense that's going on is based on racism. Racism in this country. To even suggest that Barack Obama wasn't a citizen is the height of racism, and it's deliberate. It was calculating. It was really purely evil.
And also, it's nothing new. If you know American history, it's the same
no,
thing.
It's not. No, it's
slave
not.
catchers, having your papers. Who owns you, boy? What you doing out here on the street in the middle of here? Where's your papers at to prove that you can come from here to here? That's nothing new. What's new?
12 years a slave.
He's the president, and we still asking for his papers. So.
Oh yeah. So.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, not to scare black people, fam, but one of the things my nerdy, geeky self does, one of my day jobs is I run an outdoor science school, so I'm into science and stuff, so, hey, makes sense. I've really been keeping my eye on a lot of the things that we've been shooting out into outer space, whether it's SpaceX with Elon Musk. A couple of days ago, the Rosetta, the European Space Agency, their little probe finally crashed into the comet they were, checking out. We've got the wonderful Juno out there taking pictures. So even Lisa, as you know, I have these dualities all the time, is always thinking when you start getting a lot of this stuff probing in the space, I always think white people are leaving the planet, y'all. They're trying to leave us. Because there's just too much exploration. Like, no, I'm sitting here watching, I was like, yeah, SpaceX, oh yeah, it went up in the air, oh look, it landed back straight up, and people paying this money. I'm like, who's paying money to go leave to go where? What's going on? They talking about going to Mars. I don't know if you heard the reports about people telling people, if you sign up for this expedition, you have to prepare to die because you're not coming back. And I'm thinking,
it's one way. It's one way. Yeah.
To that? I mean, I know there's people who are going to do it because there's people who are out there who are like that, but I'm noticing more and more. And it's kind of the same when years ago, when one of the first early films that came out, A Trip to the Moon, a lot of sci-fi movies would come out, and later on in the 50s, and it's almost we are predicting what we're going to be doing next. Of course, in the 50s, we had the sci-fi things. We were talking about going to outer space, and eventually in 68, went to the moon. So I feel like we're in this time where there's a lot of things that we are being I'm not just saying that the American technology got us hooked into some stuff. I'm just saying there's so much going on. I'm hoping that people are paying attention to a lot of the space exploration, especially for those of us who are writing sci-fi and speculative fiction, really start looking at who is going out into space, who's funding this stuff, what are some of the technologies that are being used and created, and what are some of the experimentation and things that are going on? Because I'm always curious. Because one of the things I joke about, every now and then on Twitter, I'll go and I'll look at the Juno tag just to check because, it's out there taking pictures and, we're supposed to get some new pictures back. And I'm always concerned that we're going to get some pictures of something we wasn't supposed to see. Whether it's like Elizabeth Williams with the black people on the other side of the moon, or something out there that we weren't supposed to see, and now we have a picture, and then I'm going to be sitting here scared because the aliens are coming. But I have to stop myself because I start thinking, well, where did this whole idea of aliens coming to colonize the planet comes from? Oh, yeah, white folks. Because whenever you talk about early sci-fi, it's always the bad aliens that come through and these bad things and going out. So I feel like there's like this colonial guilt trip that's going on. But I feel like as writers, we really need to be looking a lot of the things that are going on. I mean, we're focused on the planet and a lot of things, the human things that we're doing to each other. But I think we really need to be looking in terms of why are there so many space explorations going on right now, and who's leaving, and who has the money and resources to leave.
Well, and you look at somebody as notable as Stephen Hawking, who says, well, maybe we should quit, we should shut down our electromagnetic spewings out into space, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because the people here, if somebody does come here, they may not be friendly. And you know what? That is the greatest example of projection possible. Because let's look around the world. Where did whenever white Europeans landed someplace, what did they do? Rack and ruin. They destroyed civilizations. They attempted genocide. As a matter of fact, they're still trying to do the slow genocide of the native peoples here on this continent.
And then they create a buffer class of white people who they would not mingle with ever, but they need that buffer of white people who are poor, without resources, who value whiteness other than being a human. And so there's always that buffer class wherever you go on the planet. That's a given.
Yeah, and I always have to wonder about poor white people always voting against their own self-interest. And then a study was done, and this is hilarious. Most poor whites support Republican tax policies where the rich get all the breaks and everything like that, because they think that Republicans are reserving their privilege for when they win the lottery.
When they win the lottery, okay.
That can you? I mean, I can't. That would come out in a scholarly study. Just blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It just not that they want to work hard, not that they want to participate in society. No, they just want all those rich things. All of those advantages that are given to the wealthy, because they're going to take advantage of them when they win the lottery.
Right.
So
and there's no foresight in planning. For example, they're in Standing Rock right now with a lot of the Lakota people there and a lot of the different Native people that are going out there for the no DPL, which is the North Dakota pipeline that's going through.
Right.
These are Native people, and this company is trying to put these pipelines through indigenous lands. And the indigenous people are like, look, your companies have histories of messing up, and we have to survive on our water. And we have to survive. We're not having that. But then there's those certain class of white people who are protesting a lot, who are saying, but you're stopping from getting jobs. You're stopping us from getting, and it's like, well, what jobs are you talking about, for whom? And also, you're not even thinking in terms of the next generation of water being life. Water is life. So the fact that you are willing to, it doesn't matter about the water. We just want these jobs. If you ain't got no water, ain't gonna be no jobs. It's just they're not.
No, they're not. But that's the lie. They're not interested in the jobs. They're interested in the revenue. That's all. Yeah. The jobs is the lie. The jobs is the big lie. They don't give a damn about the jobs, because every one of these pipelines, okay, so let's say they employ 5,000 people to put the pipeline in. Once the pipeline's in, they only need 35 people.
Exactly. So
that's the big lie. Yeah, the truth of the matter is they want the revenue. They want the revenue from getting the oil from point A to point B, or the sludge, or the sands tar, or whatever. So I mean, the whole thing, it's so easy to figure out.
There's no thinking in terms of the future. Like, there's this whole thing of
Correct.
And I don't know if people are aware of it, but look it up. In November, they're having the very first Indigenous Con, which is the Native Con. Everybody's invited to come, but the focus is on Native peoples and nerdom. So, which is comic books, everything. So I'm going. I'm excited about going. And the idea is that there's this Indigenous and Native futurism. And what a lot of people don't realize is this is a huge thing that's going on in Standing Rock right now. But the media is not showing it. I've been getting pictures from Native folks, sending me pictures and just looking at stuff on social media. If you look at the pictures from 1975, when the government came through and tried to go roll through Lakota people, the same pictures you're seeing right now. And it's not getting a lot of media attention because apparently Native people are dead and they're romanticized and they're from the past. They're not in the future. But what the Native people are doing is they're embracing Native, Indigenous futurism. And basically they're saying that this land is our land. you guys are all colonizers sitting on here, and we're holding on to this little piece because you did this to us before. We fell for the okie doke the first time when y'all came through dirty, but this time it's not going to happen. And I think this is really important that the listeners that hang out with us with the Black Science Fiction Society needs to understand that there are groups of people who are inextricably linked with our history, because Black and Natives, to me, they go together, not because I'm Black and Native, but because the history, we go together. We need to understand that there are people out there, who are going through kind of the same things that we're doing, and they're also trying to fight to write their own stories, too. There's a contest that's going to, the date is November 1st. I think I have it on my Twitter feed, but Grace Dillon, a wonderful Native friend of mine, she has a contest. It's just their 7th annual Indigenous Futurism Short Story Contest. So if any of our listeners out there who are part Native or know of any Native science fiction writers, I'll put it up on my Twitter feed tonight. Again, check it out and get those stories out there. But they're fighting for their futures too, and I think it's important for Black people to recognize that and to really think about our allyship with that, because we're dealing with people who are fighting for their land, who've been basically, anytime you talk about Native, like I've been to places with Native folks hanging out, chilling, and it was an academic conference, and have people in the room be talking, doing a presentation, and talk about, and the Natives used to live here, and I'm looking at all the Natives in the room, we looking at each other like, are we not sitting here? And this is like talking about science fiction,
Right,
so,
right.
And the same thing with Black people. It's like you go in a room, it's like, oh, you write, they look at you like, you write science fiction? Yes. You mean there's you besides Octavia Butler and Samuel Delaney? Yes.
Yeah, I have a problem with I've always had a problem with that, because it's as if there's only two Black science fiction writers, maybe 4 if you include Tananarive and Stephen.
Oh, I know, I know.
So yeah, I hear that all the time, and then of course I have that added burden of, well, that great Black science fiction writer William Hayashi, and I'm going, that ain't never going to happen. It's not going to happen. So,
no, you shouldn't say that, because I think one of the things that we need to get across to the fans who are listening is, I'm telling you, I tell you this with the deepest sincerity. All my ancestors who was here on the ground when we showed up, all my ancestors who were enslaved and brought here, and all my ancestors who unfortunately brought us here.
Yeah, I forgot. And I don't trade on one aspect of, let's see, grandmother. I'm 1/8 Cherokee. And I never put that on any applications. Imagine what I've missed out on my whole life by not identifying as Native. So, but the thing that I look at overall, and especially from your perspective, because now that you've become kind of like you're a critic, you're a cultural critic, you're a critic of culture, you're a critic of, well, everything that culture encompasses, which is media, which is entertainment, which is everything like that. I am so happy that the barrier is low enough that you can get your words out there without having to have to get past some white gatekeeper.
Oh my God!
You know what I'm saying?
Or watching. Anytime someone Black creates something and puts on, I'm telling you, they are watching and they are taking stuff and they are really listening to what we have to say. So I think we're at a critical juncture where we need to start getting product out. We need to stop self-censoring and not, thinking, oh, they're not, make your stuff. Make it on your own if you have to. Like a lot of the people that I've been talking to on the podcast that we do, the Screenwriters Rant Room, a lot of people who are getting their stuff done now are people who are just going out there, filming their stuff, putting it on YouTube, and just making their own product, and they're getting noticed.
Exactly.
I'm telling you right now, the way that like on the latest episode we had Lee Jessup, and Lee Jessup is a wonderful, she's a screenwriting coach. If you check out our latest episode on Screenwriters Rant Room, and we were just talking, our latest episode, it just dropped on Monday, and we were talking about this, like the game has changed. Like back in 2000, the old school way of doing it was, you got an agent, you have to go through these hoops and whoop-de-whoop, and maybe you get on a show. The people now, the powers that be, they are scouring YouTube. They're looking for product from people who are just getting out there, making their stuff. Because they realize is they've kind of inbred themselves to the point where they don't have any creative voices. And so they're looking for that new out. And a lot of us, like I said, we self-censor and we don't do something because we think, oh, well, it's not legit. It's just me and my friends. Make that, because I'm telling you, people want that. I'm thinking in terms of Issa Rae with her Awkward Black Girl, the new show she has on HBO right now.
Right.
I'm thinking of Donald Glover with Atlanta, the TV show on FX, which is a show I love. Which is basically just making their stuff and saying, you know what, we're going to put it out there. And what I love about Donald Glover, who's like the ultimate geeky black nerds, quirky black boys, is basically his writing room is all black. And he wanted it that way.
Uh-huh.
And I think this is very key and important, because I think in terms of what's being created for authenticity and people making their stuff, controlling the narrative of who's telling the story. I'm thinking also in terms of Chea Hodari, who's the showrunner for, executive producer for Luke Cage.
Sure.
Putting those writers and putting those people in place. So I just feel like we just need to start putting our stuff out and not censoring ourselves and worrying about whether it's legit because it's gone through the quote-unquote proper channels. Make it. I'm telling you, some of the best stuff I watch, I don't even watch cable TV anymore. I make my own cable network. Like, I'm scouring through YouTube. I'm looking for stuff. Some of the best stuff I've seen is stuff that I'm not going to see on ABC or HBO or anything like that. And I'm like, if people only knew how talented and creative their own content is, it's becoming more level. I'm not saying it's easier, but I'm saying it's possible. The possibility is there. So we just need to start making our stuff.
And the other thing is that you have to pay attention. You have to listen in unaccustomed sources, because you're not going to be sitting there sitting on cable and seeing ads or blurbs or trailers for this other content, because they're not going that route. So you have to start thinking non-traditionally in terms of how you're going to find your new content or something that might be interesting to you that you would never have seen otherwise.
Right. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the best stuff I'm seeing in terms of, like, I'm really big on horror, but some of the best horror stuff I'm seeing are, like, horror shorts on YouTube.
Sure.
People putting their stuff together, and people are getting jobs from doing that. Like some of the like the movie that just came out a few months ago, what's it called, Lights Out? That was like a 1-minute short on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
They made it into a full-on movie, and it made money. I'm like, what? And I'm like, I actually went to go pay money to go see it when I just watched the short. Like I said, it was only like a minute long, but there's other movies that have been done that have come from like different shorts of stuff. So I'm like, oh my God, black people, start putting your content out there. They are looking.
Yeah.
They're looking.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask you was, in your travels, when you get to talk to, I don't know how to characterize them, like white producers, white production people, the people in the mainstream media who are responsible for looking for content. Have you had an opportunity to talk to them about the way they look for new things? Do they actively scour? Do they look around? Do they wait for someone to find to find something and then tell them? Or like Oprah was, she had a 28-year-old white lady reading all those books before she would go and put them in her book club. What can people expect in terms of the process for seeking new ideas? Because that could give them ideas.
One of the things I've been noticing, and the smart companies are doing this, they actually have people that's their job. That's what they do all day. They're looking at social media content. They're looking at YouTube. They're looking at all the different media content out there, looking for the next big thing. Like, there are people who do this. This is their job, which would be an awesome job for me, because that's what I do when I'm looking for stuff. Like, somebody pay me. But, they're looking for this. The thing I can tell people is you've got to build up your brand, and you have to be social media savvy. And I say this to writers, too, because what's interesting is when I talk to a lot of writer people, when I go to different conventions and I'm talking to writers and things, one of the things I hear is like, oh, I'm not even on Twitter, or I'm not on this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Why not? Like, some of the things that I have bought, like books and content, is because somebody posted it on their Twitter feed. I'm like, oh, let me check that stuff out. And went and bought it. You know what I mean? So you really have to really create your presence, whether it's your own blog page. whether it's, your social media, saying something smart. I mean, you don't have to be a Twitter fan like me, but you do have to be able to use a form of social media that you're comfortable with, whether it's Tumblr, Snapchat, whatever it is, whatever your thing is.
Sure.
I like Twitter because it's short, 140 characters. Whatever you got to say it, and that's done. That's great. That's all I need. A lot of us aren't doing that, and so it's ironic because a lot of stuff like gigs, certain things that I've gotten that I wouldn't have gotten, whether it be an invite to come to a conference, be on a panel, being hit up to submit something for an anthology, has come from social media. And not just social media, but, also going to different cons. And I'm like, for example, I'm going to Helsinki next summer for one of the World Cons. Nala Hopkins, who I love, and is a really dear friend. She's one of the guest of honors there. And I've always wanted to go to a place that's really, really, really white and really, really Norwegian because I love all my Thor mythology and stuff. So I want to go to where Thor and all those people and the Vikings come from. And I'm excited about that. But I feel like you gotta put your presence out there. You've got to create content so people know about your stuff, And it's sad that a lot of people, and I know a lot of people don't like to be involved with technology sometimes, and they feel like they're going to get caught down the rabbit hole because it's so easy to get on there and get lost, and hours go by. You're like, my day is done. But I think as writers, as filmmakers, you've got to do that. To give you an example, one of my favorite people on, I have so many favorite people on Twitter, but one of my favorites is Black Girl Nerds. And one of the things, there was I can't remember what TV show it was, but there was an actor who made a comment who basically said that, people who live tweet stuff and get on Twitter and do all that stuff, they have like garbage lives and, that's ridiculous. And I remember Black Girl Nerds and a bunch of different people had brought that clap at and basically said, are you kidding me? On any given night, if you look at what's trending, especially if it has to do with TV shows or anything that's of pop culture importance,
right?
Black people are leading that, and they are tweeting about that, and they are interacting. Yes. So if you're not involved with that, you're going to suffer. And there's a lot of TV people who are starting to learn that. Like some of the most successful shows that are popular right now, a lot of their success, too, comes from their stars, their writers, their people, their fandom live tweeting or talking about the show on Facebook. So having that presence, I think, is so important on social media. Like I said, you don't have to tweet and do stuff all the time, but if you want people to know what your stuff is, that's where you need to hit it. You won't believe how many people hit me up on Twitter because I write for Bitchflix who send me, hey, here's a link to my short. You might want to check this out. Or here's a link to my movie, whatever, where I'm like, let me go check that out. And, sometimes if it's worthy, I'll make a mention. I'll think, hey, maybe I'll write about that in Bitchflix, or maybe I'll make a mention of it on the podcast because on our podcast, we're like in 32 countries. We've got like, I think right now our numbers are really, I have to check what our metric numbers are, but they're really high. Like one of our number one countries is like, I think it's like either Japan or Brazil, Britain all the time. It's like you wouldn't think. We're just talking about stuff that's happening here in the States, but people are listening. And a lot of times, just people hitting me up on Twitter and sending a link or advertising their stuff and saying, hi, why don't you check this out? I've actually done that and then told somebody, and a lot of things blow up that way. So we need to be a little bit more proactive in terms of using social media and branding yourself and making people aware of who you are. When I was heavily on Black Science Fiction, I still come on the Black Science Fiction Society webpage. I'm not as active in writing on that because my time is just blown, but I still will peruse and look through and look for stuff, and I'll see some things. I'll be like, let me go check that short out. Oh, this person's writing about this. Let me go check that out. And then I go tell a friend, and then they tell a friend. So
I'm gonna shamelessly tweet to you, from here on out. That you can just think of me as a stalker. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, look, movies and stuff like the last good movie. Someone sent me a link like, oh my God, Lisa, this is because I'm not a big zombie movie fan, but I'll go see a zombie movie if you got something different. Me and my friend that we do the podcast with, we have this argument. Like he loves zombies, like he loves them slow. I hate slow zombies. I like fast zombies. And if you're going to be a zombie, you got to be doing something. You can't be lumbering and we having these conversations for like 20 minutes while we're waiting for the zombie to come get us. But somebody sent me the link who follows me, and it was like, I know she's a big fan of this. And it's like, they sent me, I think it was like The Train to Busan or something like that.
Okay.
A Korean zombie flick that came, and I went and saw that stuff. I was like, I got to write about this movie. And it's all because somebody has sent me a link and said, oh my God, you might want to check this
Check
out.
it out.
And it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm going to write about this. And
Yeah.
I look for stuff, but I can't find everything. But a lot of times that social media, they'll hit you up.
Well, all joking aside, though, one of the things that people who are starting out have to realize is getting to a certain threshold of attention on social media is not instantaneous. And
Right.
and those people, you have to be persistent. I mean, one of the things, I forget what panel I was on, we were talking about is the fact that if you decide to be a creative and you're brand new at it, essentially what you've become is an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, if you're going to sell your wares, if you're going to market whatever it is you're doing, there has to be a certain amount of persistence in there, and you can't get discouraged. If you get discouraged, you might as well quit. You have to keep going. You have to keep going because it's not easy. This is, I think, that's the universal challenge.
It's not overnight. Like even with writing, for example, my writing godmother, Nisa Shaw, who's won different awards, fantastic writer. She's built a career of writing short stories, critiques. She's won awards and stuff. She just recently, if everybody can go check it out, her new book, Everfair, just came out. She's on her very first. She's finishing up her very first book tour, and she's been writing 3 years, and this is her very first book tour. So she's been building, And she did it. Sure. She came through San Diego, and we hung out and had lunch, and went to her reading, and she went up to S1 in LA, and was going to different places with tour books for her new book Everfair, and we had a conversation. I remember we were sitting here and we were chilling before she went to her reading, and we had some Indian food, and we were talking and kind of chilling before, we went to her reading. And she was sitting there like, I have been writing for so long, and I'm actually living my dream right now. That dream, now mind you, kick-butt science fiction writer, fantasy, one of our greats, like, friends that like she's been in the game for a while writing, put in the work, a founding member of the Carl Brandon Society, like she's put in work for us. And to be able to sit there with one of my elders and sit there and chill and have her say, I am finally doing what I had set out to do,
Right.
But that was a long time. And so a lot of people come into the business, whether it's screenwriting, I see it a lot too, whether it's short story, they just going to come here and sweep up everything and just you put in work. Because what you need to realize, the competition is really stiff. But at the same time, if you're persistent and you keep working on your craft and you get better and the quality gets better and you like the bomb, you'll get to a certain level, but it's not overnight. I mean, I think of all the different writers or producers that have come into my podcast and have talked to us, and all of a sudden, they're getting all these accolades and doing these great shows, but then when we break down their story, they're like, man, I've been putting in work for 15, 20 years. It's like, this ain't no overnight success. This is like overnight and overnight and overnight, So I think as content creators, we have to really put that out, And Lee Justice said it too. She had a client come in one time. It's like, I'm going to come to Hollywood and I'm going to work on my screenwriting career and I'm going to give it a year. And if nothing pops off in a year, I'm out. And she was like, well, we might as well end this conversation right now because you're not serious, And that was the end of that. And I'm like, you have to be real with people, You
want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
As a writer here in Chicago, I started writing in 2001. I didn't get published until 2009. But during that whole time, I talked to a lot of writers. I was dropped in a bunch of writing groups, networking groups, and things like that. And I will tell you this: universally, every single black person I talked to about, they were going to get their book out, and what I said, well, what's your marketing plan? Well, how are you going to do this? Well, I'm gonna get Oprah to put my book on her show, and then I'm on Easy Street. I swear to you, that was their marketing plan. Every single one of them.
I'm going to get on Oprah, and Oprah will make magic.
And I said, well, did you know that there's a 28-year-old white woman who reads all the books for Oprah? And I talked to this woman, the actual woman who screened books for Oprah, and not to get my book in there. I just wanted to know the process because I wondered what she went through. She said 1 week she got 11,000 books.
Oh God, that's one heck of a flesh file to read through. Can you imagine?
Oh,
I mean, your book,
no kidding.
That book title better be good.
She could never go through those books. And then when Oprah chose what was it, David Copperfield, for her book of the whatever month or whatever, I knew that the whole gig was up. The gig was up,
Right.
So
Well, it's like with the magazine I read for, Apex, we get like, on average, probably about 600 to 700 submissions a month. Now, mind you, that's kind of average for and mind you, and mind you, Apex, I think in our magazine, we only publish no more than like 3 or 4 short stories.
Okay, sure.
In one issue. And so, you really got to come with it. Like when I get my queue and start going through the slush and I'm looking, like, your stuff got to be tight. Like literally, like I'm looking at your title. Your title has got to do some heavy lifting.
Right.
And that first page, like literally the first page, like I'm giving the first page to let you know if I like you or not, and I'm giving you by the third page whether or not, you worth investing my time in. And that's the same when I'm reading scripts too. Page 1 and page 5, I'm in and then I'm out, And it's got to be tight. And I think for a lot of people, whether it's screenwriting, whether it's short story writing, or whether it's that book, you got to realize that your stuff can't just be good. It's got to be insane.
Yeah.
Because you would not believe on average how many stories I read each week, short stories for Apex, where I'm looking at this and I'm like, y'all didn't even try.
Well, but it's true. But it's true. But see, the thing is to be an extraordinary writer takes skill. You're lucky if you have talent, but for damn sure you have to have skill. Okay, and that means knowing the fundamentals of writing. And a lot of people don't put that effort in. Let's be honest. A lot of people just figure,
But I will say this too. I will say this in defense of the magazine I read for. Like, here's the thing. You can get really close. Like, if it's not exceptional, but you're honing your craft and you're honing a skill and you're really trying, if there's a spark of something there, a lot of readers will give a note to their editor and say, and I've done this myself, they'll give a note and just say, you know what, this is not exactly our fit for right now, but this writer's got something. You might want to ask them to submit something else. So I want to tell writers out there, like, if you get a rejection, couple things about rejection. Number 1, all rejections don't necessarily mean that your writing is not good. To be honest, sometimes the magazine might already have a short story that's similar to that they're already publishing. They don't want to go that route again. Or if they're doing a theme for whatever that month is and it's not fitting, it doesn't mean that your writing's not good. It might not be a good fit for that magazine. And that's something that you have to learn. And once you learn that, rejection becomes easier. Like, I get rejected all the time. For example, Niecy Shaw was doing a magazine and said, hey, you might want to submit something to us. And then she gave me a nice rejection. And one would think, she's my writing godmother. She's my homie. We talk like twice a week. I see her every year. Give me that solid. That's not how it works because they real. She's like, nope, it didn't fit. It's not. We have some other stuff. Sorry, it didn't fit. And I don't take it personal because I know
you can't.
A story will fit. It will find its place. But I will say this: a lot of times, it might not be a fit. But, look to see if you get that note, that personalized note that says, hey, send us something else. And then if they say it, oh, my freaking God, send it. People don't. Like, they'll get a note from whatever. And I know, and I'll be looking at the queue like, I know I put a note saying that this person should send something else. And I'll try to peruse and see, like, well, did they try to send something else pretty soon? And don't like, why did they not send nothing else? We have to send stuff out, and do it and not be discouraged. And trust me, I've been there on that end. But now that I'm on the other side now, don't take rejection so seriously. You can be bummed. I give you permission to be bummed for like 5 minutes. 5 minutes only. And then what you need to do is, all right, well, that house didn't fit. I'm going to send it to somebody else's house, and see what happens. And that's happened to me several times where I've submitted to certain places, got rejected, but then it's picked up, same story. Didn't really change anything, but it's gone home someplace else and it's done well. So you got to do that. But most importantly, you got to work.
I just submitted a story to Analog Magazine, which is actually going to test them to see if they have a sense of humor because it's a perfect story. It's 1,900 words. It's a joke, and that's the other thing. This is not a story that I could submit someplace else without rewriting it and changing it for that because it uses the editor's names and things like that. But again, one of the things that I want to remind people is that a rejection is not an invalidation of self.
Right.
you have to develop a thick skin about this, because there are far more writers than there are outlets to publish.
Right.
Okay, and that's just a simple math. And in order for, and like you said at the very beginning, in order for you to be considered, you do have to be fairly extraordinary, because average is everywhere. Below average is even more pervasive. So hone your skills, develop a thick skin, and the persistence. I don't think I can stress persistence enough, because a lot of people just give up. You can't do that. Okay, so like many people, you've gone through life, you have reinvented yourself to have an additional part to your identity, a new part of your identity, something different. Where do you think you might be like 5 or 10 years from now? Right now you're a minister without portfolio, passing judgment on current culture. And well, am I right or not?
I'm like, what is the character's name from the old Muppet Show when they sit up in the Critics Theater and they look down and they judge everything?
Well, yeah, but you can't really argue with it. But I mean, you are. Do you see, what other kinds of things are interesting to you? Because I think this is another essential personality trait for creatives that helps in the long run. To have more than a singular interest, to have more than, one arrow in your quiver. And so when you think down the road, okay, for like me, I'm an ordained minister. And mostly so that I could marry people, maybe do last rites or whatever. But in case the bottom drops out of the IT industry, I'm going to start a church, because I'm going to be great at doing a church. But so that's kind of like an arrow in my quiver. For you, what do you see for your future? Do you see anything changing? Where do you see another kind of evolution of yourself that might come to pass?
That's a great question. I was just thinking about this a couple of weeks ago. Like, where do I want to be 5 years from now? I was only thinking 5 years, so it's like, a little bit of time.
Sure.
Honestly, like I said, more into film criticism. I almost feel like I want to do almost not like a Cisco and Ebert type TV show. I almost feel like I want to do like a dinner show, TV show, where we talk about Black film, Black science fiction, Black popular culture. I just feel like I need to start being that griot for Black folk around the world, to start making sure that we are documenting, a digital archive. I don't know what it is exactly, but I feel like I'll still be creating my stuff, but I feel like I need to start commenting and being the narrator for the people that are going to be reading this in the future. Like, I feel like I need to be the digital hostess.
No. You're not going to be a digital. No, you won't. You won't be a digital hostess. I'll give you the title of what you'll be. You'll be a cultural curator.
Thank you. I will be a cultural curator for the people that come after us, just to make sure they understand. And I mean that in terms of the culture. I'm talking about film. I'm talking about television. I'm talking about literature,
art,
also music,
literature,
art.
Yeah.
I think it's important because I feel like last year, I was part of this really amazing last September. One of my really good friends, Dr. Yana Jameson and Dr. Moya Bailey and Dr. Ruha Benjamin, they put together Ferguson is the Future at Princeton. And I was invited along with Ken Anna Reed, Steve Barnes, Danielle Jose Older, Nala Hopkinson, Nisi Shaw. All the great, Samuel Delaney was invited. He was able to come. But I was able to take part in the symposium that talked about Black to the Future. You can go online. Those of you who are listening now, who are listening later, if you go on and type in Ferguson is the Future, you should be able to find the link to the Princeton archives, and I think it's Princeton Black to the Future, and you can actually watch. They filmed it, so you can actually watch what we talked about. And we covered film, we covered music. One of my favorite DJs, DJ Linnell Denise, she's a digital archivist in terms of music, like she talks about futurism and house music and hip hop, and like it was like the best symposium of like blackness I've ever been to. It was like if you could take all your favorite well-known sci-fi writers and then bring in some newbies who are coming up and let them spend a whole 3 or 4 days together at Princeton and able to just break bread on blackness and the future. And I mean, and I realized that's the kind of thing I think I want to do in the future, more like that, because I felt like it was almost an out-of-body experience. It was that, and then recently Dr. Jameson, she also did the Octavia Butler thing that we had at UCSD recently, where we were celebrating Octavia Butler, where same thing, you know, artists and writers, and we invited my Clarion teacher, Ted Chiang, to come through and talk about futurism in Octavia Butler, because Octavia Butler was Ted Chiang's teacher when he was at Clarion, and he was my teacher at Clarion. And it was one of those things I felt like I need more of that. So cultural archivist, you know, cultural curator, I think in 5 years that's kind of what I want to do. Not so much in, I don't know, just bringing those things together in a space where we can start saving it. I don't want to say like a time capsule, but putting it out there so that we don't have to have other people dictating and telling us what our thing is. And also, I'm really curious to know and work on, because I remember recently I was at an event and with who was I with? Oh, Nettie, of course, who just won, you know, all the awards pretty much, Nebula and Hugo's and stuff. And you know, the idea of futurism and Afrofuturism, and how I know that Nettie doesn't really like the word because she feels like it's just, you know, doesn't really encompass everything. But I feel like having seminars and things where we talk about and control and help grow and change and shift whatever this thing that we're doing, especially those of us who are on the Black Science Fiction Society who are artists and trying to do our thing. I mean, I know that was a long-winded answer, but
no. But I mean, that makes sense.
I kind of see that, what I'm interested in doing, and whether I can get paid doing that, we'll see.
So, you know, and the other thing, you know, one of the things that I talked about in one of the panel discussions in the Afrofuturism one is, you know, people go, well, where do we find this stuff? I said, well, you know, the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com has 5,000 people on there, and out of those 5,000 people, probably fully half of them are content creators of some kind. Yes. And then they're going, really? I never heard of that.
Over 5,000? Oh my God! I remember when.
Well, it's close to 5. It's somewhere. It's near there.
But we had a few hundred. Oh my God! We have grown so much.
I know. And then when you look at the quality of some of the work there, it is as good or better than anything I read in Asimov's or Analog. Yes. And the damn shame of it is that it's going to take, you know, let's say a show like what you're talking about in the future to get the wider public to see it. Because, you know, you can use social media. Yeah, you can, you know. Okay, for me, if I spend $20,000 on marketing, and that's $18,000 to the New York Times book magazine where I take a full-page ad out, and the other $2,000 go to Analog and Asimov, that is a huge raise in visibility for me. And I'll probably end up doing both of those, or all three of those, sorry. But otherwise, how is someone going to find, you know, this half-black, half-Japanese guy who writes speculative fiction, who according to other people, you know, has written something as significant as, oh man, someone said Herbert's Dune, and it blew my mind because I don't see myself like that yet. But then I don't see myself the way other people see me. But how does somebody find me? Well, okay, like for you, you know, if you've got let's see, you've got a couple websites, you know, you can put a link to this podcast. You know, and to your earlier one, you should have links to both of those so people can listen to you. You know, because they may not be able to catch you live someplace. They may not be able to. They may not find you on the Princeton video, and so then they're going to go, well, who's the person who interviewed him? And then they'll, oh, okay, fine. But you know, again, if you do what you think you're going to do, which is to start to curate, you know, black art, black writing, in science fiction, fantasy, and horror, whatever, with your visibility, that helps the entire genre, or excuse me, that helps the entire cadre of content creators. And so the other thing that's difficult is to try to get Black creators to advocate for work that is not done by themselves, to say, well, I belong to this place and there are so many of these people here, take a look at everything that's there. Because, we were brought up in probably maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 12 generations where we were taught to believe that life is a zero-sum game. So let's say between you and me, if I talk about your stuff and we're in a discussion together and somebody buys 5 books of yours, I have been conditioned, or society has tried to condition me to believe that you just took 5 books worth of money out of my pocket because it is a zero-sum game. And it's not. There's room for everybody. And the other thing that I think that your show would do, or at least something of that nature would do, is to broaden the audience. Because if people don't know, they're never going to think that they're missing something. If you don't know about something, how do you know you're missing it?
Right.
If you're a comic book freak and you love Marvel and you love DC, how are you going to know about the literally thousands of other Black comics that are out there that are of the same or even better quality? The ignorance factor is a tough thing to overcome. And it's not something that I can blame any one person about. I can blame gatekeepers. I can refer to the study that you talked about where they said, well, this just doesn't happen. And we all know, there's a myriad reasons of why it doesn't happen, why we don't get published. But what you just talked about doing in your next evolution, it's incredible. I don't think anybody should discount it. And as hard as it may be to get an audience at the beginning, at least you're going to have people like me proselytizing for something like that, because there has to be at least one huge loud voice. And then from that one loud voice, small voices grow.
Right. I'm always everybody's cheerleader. Like, I love finding new stuff and promoting people and saying, hey, y'all should check this out, like, bigger. Sure. Even though a lot of my friends always accuse me, like, girl, you need to get your own stuff out there. But for me, like, honestly, like this is a dream. Like, if I can live, this is all I ever want to do. All I want to do is have enough money to be comfortable and, like, watch movies that I want to watch and read some good books and just eat good food and travel. Like, that's a simple life that I want. But I found myself, I have to go out and advocate and look for the stuff that I want to see, and that forced me to start writing. When I was starting to see the movies I didn't want to see, like, that forced me to start screenwriting,
Right, the ones that you want to see, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Like Octavia Butler said, I started writing because I wanted to see myself, and it makes sense, gosh darn it, But I don't know, it's we have to advocate for one another, and for example, like, I was really disheartened because I get caught up in pop culture and TV shows, and I was really disheartened when like one of my guilty pleasures is Empire. It is like my favorite trash TV show. Like, I have 2 friends that write for that show, and like, it's my guilty pleasure. Like, I love watching it with my mother, and I just it's just fun. Like, it just helps me relax. And then I remember, like, 50 Cent with his show Power was like talking trash and bringing down the show and talking about Taraji P. Henson and saying all this derogatory stuff, like, and I'm thinking to myself, number one, you're both on 2 different networks. You're 2 different shows. You should be, like, pumping each other up, Like, you got numbers, like, it's like this kind of, I don't know, crab in the barrel mentality always, but it almost, I don't know, I just think that we need to be pumping each other up and not feeling like, by somebody else getting some shine, you're not going to get yours, because everything is for everybody, and you got to fit in where you get in. And I have to take it personally, just like friends who I have who have won Nebby Awards who were, like, amazing, and I still pump them up, even though I'm trying to get to the level they are, even though we homies, and I can go to their house and look at their award and be like, oh, that's a nice nebula. Oh, girl, let me touch that Hugo Award,
Yeah.
But it's
Can
like,
I rub that on me a little bit?
Yeah, I love that. Can I borrow that? No. It's like, but you have to create a sense of camaraderie, a sense of family, a sense of your success is my success, and when you shine, I'm going to shine. And a lot of my friends that are writers and directors in LA who are doing, who are working on really good shows, who are doing well,
Sure.
they kind of do that, when something's going down, they're like, hey, whoop-de-whoop, somebody's looking for this action, someone's looking for this, and you move in those circles of people who do that.
Sure.
I don't know, it's something that we have to, like you said, get access to information, share that information, and not just hoard it like, oh, I'm going to get this for me and not tell anybody else. This is a better chance for me to get it. It's like, I don't know, you've got to create a sense of we're all going to get there together, and we're all going to have a certain success, but we need to be able to share information and share what's going out. I don't know. It's one of those questions that I deal with every day, I guess. I don't know. Just putting in that work.
But sometimes, if what you described is exactly that zero-sum mentality. Why do you have to run somebody else down to try to bring you up? Don't you realize that the more you... Go ahead.
Good. No, I was just going to say, like, if somebody's successful and doing well, whether it's a movie or a book or, a short story, something like that, this is how I think, oh, my God, that did amazingly well. They might be looking more of that. Hey, that might be a new way for me to get in, too, as opposed to,
right.
She thinks she's cute. He thinks he all that.
Yeah.
You need to flip that and think, holy moly, that might be a chance for me to get my stuff out there. It's like, yay.
Yeah.
Yay,
I mentioned this before, but when Iron Man 2 came out, and Terrence Howard obviously had talked himself out of a part. I was on the south. I know. I was on the south side, and I was going past one of the theaters here in Chicago, and on the marquee it said Iron Man 2, Terrence Howard 0.
That's cold.
That is so cold.
Oh.
But, I think that we have to, your point is well taken about the whole running somebody else down. First of all, it makes you look small and petty. Okay?
Yeah, it does. And guess what? Now I don't even want to watch Power. I hadn't been watching Power, but it was like, since it's become kind of popular, I may take some time. I ain't gonna watch it now. Forget your show 50.
Yeah, and I don't want to support people who are in the habit of trying to destroy other people's careers, or at least pull them back, or tie a big ass brick to them while they're trying to swim across the pool. So it's
like, Nick, do you realize how many black shows are doing well? Not just with black people watching it, but just across the board, like some good stuff. You need to be rejoicing.
Oh, absolutely.
and looking for other people, like, who else got something just as good? Let's see what else we can create and build on. Like, I don't.
Right. Hey, when a black show breaks Netflix, when you ruin somebody, when you down someone's servers, and Netflix has some big streaming servers. I mean, I happen to know, I'm in the industry. When you can bring down Netflix, that's marketing power. That's unbelievable.
I was hot when I could. That was hot when I couldn't get the rest of my Luke Cage.
Oh, girl, if I had been in your room, if I'd have been right there would be no PG-13. There would have been no PG-13 up in there, was there?
I was doing quarter binges, like, okay, now we're going to go. And I was like, okay, hold on, I'm pressing it. I was like, what? Child, I have to go on my phone on Twitter, like, Twitter, what is going on?
Oh,
like,
man.
We are so sorry. I was like, y'all done broke Netflix. Black people, y'all done broke Netflix.
Well, not only did they break Netflix, but they blew up Twitter, too.
Yeah.
Reporting on Netflix. So,
yes.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that slowly but surely, media conglomerates are paying attention. That when a phenomenon like this happens, are they going to just say, oh, well, that, something must have happened at Netflix? Or are they going to understand that diversity in entertainment means money?
Right.
I don't know.
I
don't know.
And the kind of diversity that I like, too, because, mind you, one of the shows, and I don't know who this person was, and let me just say this here. God bless you, whoever it was who put the TV show from Iceland that I wanted to see on YouTube. God bless you. I was able to watch all 10 episodes except for number 7. You forgot to put number 7 up, but I was still able to follow the storyline. But
sure.
I want to see, I not only just, when we talk about diversity, I want to see diversity in whiteness. I want to see diversity in class in terms of working class. I want to see a lot of that stuff because a lot of times people are coming down and saying, well, why is it, all these people of color are crying about diversity, especially with the new Doctor Strange coming out and with Tilda Swinton, who I love. Like, Tilda, whoever your PR person, tell them just tell you not to talk about anything. Girl, just you got your money, you made the movie, just keep your mouth shut, and this will blow over. Please don't talk about it anymore. But, it's just the sense of, we want to see diversity. And it's not just diversity in terms of just the regular stuff that you see. There's a diversity in white culture that we don't see. And I, years ago, I remember back in the day, and it has nothing to do with sci-fi, but I remember when Roseanne first came out. And people were shocked, and because it was poor white people. It was poor white trash, and that was phenomenal. We don't get to see that. So that was a totally different story. So I want to see a lot of that, and I find myself being interested in, when I'm watching television shows or if I'm watching shows that are predominantly white people, I'm more interested in sci-fi shows or that kind of stuff that's not just white people in the United States, but what are white people in other places that I will probably never visit, what is going on with them. I want to see some diversity in that, too. Because we always just think, because America is such a juggernaut, we tend to dominate everything. I'm slightly concerned with the new thing that's going on with Hollywood and China right now. But the whole new thing is we have these new, especially the superhero movies and the sci-fi movies that are coming out, where they're getting their funding in conjunction with China, and they're just putting random, Chinese actors
in
the movie because they think that's going to be a diversity and that's going to bring. And I'm like, boo, that's not how that works.
Yeah, but
they tried that with the new, what was the movie that came out? It totally flopped. The new Independence Day, when they brought in, what's her name? Right. She's one of my favorite actresses I love in China anyway. But they kind of put her in there like, Miss got so and so, but she had like this minor part, and she wasn't a big part of it. So I'm like, you made all that brouhaha talking about yes, in conjunction with China, and yet the character that you put in there, she was like a minor character, and it's like, So right now Hollywood is like they're still trying to figure it out. They're still trying to figure out what to do with the whole, when Reign of April put out her Oscar So White thing, you have a lot of what I love, my Asian Twitter peeps who are coming out with Not Your Sidekick. They're also coming out with, their own hashtags and things to make comments about things that are particular to their communities. I don't know. Right now, I just feel like Hollywood is shook. They're still trying to scramble, figure it out. They're still trying to hold on to this white narrative, and they're going to have to learn that it's, American films, we can't dominate like we used to because no one's interested in those same stories. Like, I'm curious to know how many people went out to go see, even though it's based on a true story, about the oil drill that broke out in Louisiana, the one with Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Even though it's something I would go watch, but I'm thinking these movies that they're coming up with, like even when I go to the movies and look at trailers, literally, I kid you not, I can sit there and say, who greenlight that? No one's going to go see that. Nobody wants to see that.
Something,
Yeah. And
predominantly
or something. Yeah. There's like these movies that are coming out, and they're predominantly like white folks and the same kind of stories. It's like, white people, y'all got to change your game up too. Y'all got to be creative and different and show us different parts of whiteness that we have never seen before,
Hollywood wants to embrace representative reality. Okay, they want to embrace that in terms of race, culture, what have you. But they don't know how to do it because they're so entrenched in their memes, and again, because they're risk averse. So let's say you write a script. You personally write a script that is about I don't know. It's in Chicago, and it's in Barack Obama's neighborhood, which is my old neighborhood. That's where I grew up. And you have middle class, upper middle class, all kinds of people, black, Asian, what have you, because it's around the University of Chicago. You're going to get pushback from that. I mean, I know this was a long time ago, and I bring it up about every other show, but Bill Cosby had a whole lot of trouble trying to sell the Cosby Show because it was a black lawyer and a black doctor who were married, and both present, and they had teenage kids with white problems.
That exists in real life? What? I know. I remember that. I remember being a kid and watching that, and the articles that were coming out, people who were saying that doesn't exist. And I'm thinking to myself, y'all really don't know. And you don't want to know.
But you could get 10 derivatives of Good Times on TV in a heartbeat.
Right.
You know, where they're living in Cabrini Green. So, you know, I wrote the Dark Side trilogy, and part of the protest in my writing it was I had black people I grew up with. You know, there was the diversity that I actually grew up with in Hyde Park. You know, there were all the black people I knew were educated, well educated. The parents almost universally, they all went to college. And I know that was because we're in the University of Chicago neighborhood and not in Biloxi, Mississippi, but yet it still exists. And so I wanted to write about black people who I knew and I grew up with, but I don't see anywhere. There's no such thing in the American lexicon of a middle-class black person. You got your Oprahs, you got your Michael Jordans, you got your rappers, you got your, and then you know, all these you got your dumbass Supreme Court guy. You got all of these different people in the lexicon, but there's no middle-class two-parent families who have kids who have not gone to jail. You know, that's like fiction. That's like science fiction to America's culture. And so in protest, I wrote about people who I knew, who I grew up with, who exist, and that was my slice of reality. And so, you know, to what you said about 45 minutes ago, if you don't see it and you like it, then you make it. You know, if you have the skills, make the effort, because you know what? If you don't make the effort, it's not going to happen. And so it really, you know, I look at I don't look at commercial TV anymore because I took the antennas out of here when I started writing, because I'm so stupid. If I have a cable channel that has, you know, like a premium cable channel like HBO or something like that, when I come home I feel like I'm wasting money if I don't have the TV on and I'm watching a movie. And then I have to ask myself, well, how, you know, Mr. Dumbass, how many times are you going to watch Rambo this month? Because that's the movie of the month. So I got rid of cable. I never got Dish or anything like that. So when, you know, like Luke Cage, that was easy. You know, I could stream that or download it or whatever. And I do check out what is affecting culture, and I look at it with the same eye that you're going to be looking at things in the future, or no, with the same eye that you look at it now. I take that back. This the same kind of, you know, to me, I'm reviewing it in my head. You know, and yeah, there was a cynical part of me like, oh, every black person in America must have been streaming that, you know, because when we do get something that is reflective of our culture or inclusive of our culture, you know, naturally we're excited because it doesn't happen that much, you know. Look at Friends. Were there any black people in Friends ever?
I think, what's his name, dated one black girl. Ross might have dated one black chick for a couple
of episodes. Okay. One, and that was on for how many years? You know, 8, 9, 10 years?
Yeah.
You know, and so you look at these top dollar shows where they're paying actors $1 million an episode, and you know that for a black person to get into that range, to get into a show like that is damn near impossible. And so, you know, I just laugh when I hear whites going, you know, there weren't enough white people in Luke Cage. I said, well, no, there was that one guy with the sunglasses.
I mean, Luke Cage, you know, looked like how. I mean, that show looked like how when I was.
It looked like Harlem. It looked like Harlem.
Yeah, that looks like what Harlem looks like. I don't know what part of New York you're coming from, but that kind of looked like. And it had a bunch of people in there. I mean, you had Latinos, you had Asian people, you know, you had Black Latinos, you know. You even had what's her name, Sonia, who I love from The Wire, who's Black and Asian, Black and Korean. So it's like, you had people, you had a mixture of people. So what you chose to do is you chose to get uncomfortable because you want the center of the story anymore.
Yeah,
and
that's
you know,
true.
it's just that's just how it is. I mean, like I said, Hollywood is scrambling. They're trying to figure out how to make a show because so many shows have been coming and leaving very, very quickly. On our podcast show, we had one of my favorite guests. I've had so many favorite guests, but it was interesting because we had Glenn Mazzaro, who did the Omen TV show.
Okay,
and only did like the one season, and then it got axed. And you know, I just thought it was a good show, and I was just mad because people weren't respecting horror to give it a chance, you know, and, you know, listen to a lot of the stuff that he's talking about in terms of getting Hollywood to be more inclusive. Because one of the things that Glenn had told us, and you can go check out the episode, folks. If you go to Screenwriters Rant Room and look for Glenn Mazzara, it talks about his TV show. It talks about, because what Glenn does is he goes through, he's a white guy, Italian, good people. He has these meetings where he talks about when it's not about diversity, it's about inclusion, and it's about keeping people there. Because one of the things that he sees, and he was telling us, was, you get a lot of writers, black writers, who get into television, and because, he used to be showrunner for The Walking Dead and, a lot of big shows. And he says the problem is, you'll get a black writer, someone in, and what happens is you don't give a mentorship to them. You don't help them, stay in the business. So it's like they check off, oh, we have this one black writer, but it didn't work out, And come to find out, we had a woman writer and it just didn't work out. It comes to find out that fundamentally they're not being mentored like the other white writers are. There's no showrunner taking them under their wing to help them navigate this thing. So it's not about diversity. It's really about inclusion and maintaining and making sure you retain those people, whether they are black writers or Asian writers, in particular. You can hear also in the episode that we did with Brandon Easton, good people. He wrote for Agent Carter. And, that show just recently got canceled, and he was talking about, the plight of being the black male writer trying to get in this business. And, it's real talk. Like, it's, diversity is not it. It's conclusion and being able to stay in and do that work and cultivate those voices. That's why shows like Luke Cage are so important. That's why when Black Panther comes out, it's going to be so important. These narratives that are different that no one has seen before in terms of black people being the center of the story, these are going to be important, and they're going to be watching the numbers. I'm telling y'all right now, folks, y'all better come out in your church gear and come see Black Panther, because this is going to be the litmus test for the future of black superheroes. It's like it's that serious. But I'm always
I don't think you have to worry about that. Because look at what was it 2 years ago when they announced the movie? Look at the interest it generated then.
Mm-hmm.
And they've also been very, very careful to not expose too much of what the plot's going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because I believe that the studio system now is understanding the power of the people, the people who get on social media. And so you're going to see them be a little more cagey about stuff, hoping that by avoiding controversy early, they're not going to knock themselves out of the box right away like so many of these shows have done.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking, if I lose my thought, think about, you're going to notice something. You can tell that Hollywood right now is kind of bankrupt in terms of creative ideas. All they're doing right now is they're all doing remakes of everything. Like, there's another show that's coming out. I know The Exorcist is coming out, and I'm like, really? Gina Davis, like, they're making an Exorcist into a TV series? I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
well,
how do you do that? Is the devil really around that much?
And I think I heard that Spike Lee's actually turning She's Gotta Have It into a TV series. So it's kind of like we are kind of, it's like, do we not? I mean, I know for a fact there are creative, original ideas out there. But at the same time, I think Hollywood, one, they want something different, but at the same time, the rule is they want something new, but kind of the same. And they're going for things that already have a brand, hoping it has a built-in audience. And I'm afraid that that's not going to work.
No.
Well, I'm curious to see how a couple of new shows are coming out that are based on movies, that are based on old TV shows. I just don't think people are just that interested. We want new stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I know.
But I mean, how many remakes of Bewitched are we going to see, or what? I mean, what was that other one? All of these shows that are from my generation, they're trying to put together, a remake because Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, come on, look at all the shows that they've remade in the movies, and it is kind of sad. And when you talk about Hollywood being bankrupt of imagination. I still believe, because there's so much content out there, there's so many ideas out there that you've got that fear factor, that risk aversion, and I can understand it. I'm not going to rail against it, because if you're dropping $100 million, $150 million, $200 million into a movie, you have to be assured that it's a profitable decision. And so
make at least 3 to 4 times of what you put in.
Exactly. So, yeah, we know the comic books are doing okay, but now we're running out of comic book characters, and so some of the ones that you and I like that might be outliers actually have a chance now, you know?
Right.
And we can hope that maybe this will generate enough interest so that they start to go look for other new content.
Right.
I fully go ahead. I fully believe that Dark Side is going to become either a miniseries or a series of movies. I know that. I'll probably get an option sometime in the next 5 or 10 years. I don't have a problem with waiting, but it's such a great story, and I actually came up with a plot that had never been done before. So that's probably going to appeal to somebody. Plus, you know, again, having a predominantly black cast in not necessarily an adversarial role against white people is probably not going to be so distasteful or so scary that somebody's going to immediately say no.
Right,
you know?
Right. Before I forget, I want to put something out to the fam out there. I'm really big on going to cons and things like that, but I know for a lot of us, resources, it costs money to go. So I really advise a lot of you to check out Con or Bust. If you go online and just type in Con or Bust.
Oh, yeah, I checked with them too.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an organization that it helps you with plane ticket, hotel, paying for the con. They really are focused on getting people of color, marginalized groups to go to cons, and this is a way to help get financing to help get you there. So a lot of good editors that I've met, a lot of the writing gigs I've gotten from going to cons because I've been talking, I meet up with the editor, talk to them, have lunch, hang out at the bar. Next thing you know, it's like, hey, send me your stuff. So we really need to be out there and mingling and meeting and just try to get in those spaces. So please check out Con or Bust. It's very easy to fill out the application. You just need to let them know, they have their different, I don't want to call them seasons, but different times of the year that when certain cons are coming up, that you can apply and get money to help cover hotel fare, plane tickets,
airfare,
all that stuff. Please take advantage of it. A lot of people aren't aware. I know we talked about having access to information to tell people, so I'm giving you information to get you.
Well, you know what?
Cons.
do a blog post at BSFS, and then Jarvis will highlight it so that the entire membership gets it. The other thing that I'd like you to do is, because you are traveling so much, if you don't mind dropping in maybe once a month or whatever, and fill out the events calendar of where your appearances are going to be, so that people can, let's say you're going to be in Chicago for a weekend, and I happen to go there and go, oh my God, she's going to be there, then I'll stop by and see you.
Oh yeah.
So if you put your itinerary in there, then we can.
You're gonna suck me back into the rabbit hole, boy. I remember the days of being like hours of Black Science Fiction Society. Man, I used to roam. No, I'm coming back home, fam. I'm coming back home.
I'm not trying to do anything bad to you. I'm just trying to help you uplift some other people.
I love it. No, I love it. Like, because of Black Science Fiction Society, that's where I met my really good friend, Ayanna Jameson, who's doing so much work with the Octavia E. Butler Legacy Network, and who's been working on a bunch of different great things. We met because I was trying to figure out where Octavia Butler was buried, and because of Black Science Fiction Society, we met and connected on there, and she's become one of my dearest friends.
Very cool. Very cool. We got about 2 minutes left. First of all, I want to thank you for being here. I mean, this has been a delight. It's always great to have you because I don't have to work very hard. I love that. Oh my God!
I feel like I need to gossip. Like, I hate being the guest because I just want to gossip with people. Like, okay, let me ask some questions and gossip with some folks. I'm like, oh no, they're talking to me now. All right.
Well, the other cool thing is, here we are a few years later. I'm a little better known. I've been I've traveled a little more, so I understand more of the things that you go through, and we have a lot more to talk about. So that's pretty cool too.
That's all.
Yeah, and it's we're going to check in with you every now and then anyway. All right?
Okay, no worries. I can always come hop back in because usually Fridays, if I make it back in time from running around from LA and San Bernardino, I'll definitely come and hop in on the chat and try to give as much information as possible. Like I said, Con or Bust, shoot your stories over to Apex Magazine. I do like the slush reading. Right now our submissions are closed right now, but they'll be opening up pretty soon. So I'll give you like another 2 months to start getting your stories ready. But I comb through there and I look. And if you hit me up on Twitter, like direct message me, or hit me up on the Black Science Fiction Society page, where my page is, let me know what the name of your story is, and I'll try to look to see. I'm a hard mistress. Like, if it's good, hey. If it's not, I'll let you or Apex will let you know. But hey, definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, everybody. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. It's honestly, it's a pleasure, Lisa. And one of these days, I'm going to meet you in person. You know,
We will meet at a con. You've got to come to WisCon next year.
Well, you know what? Yeah, you know, WisCon is right across the border. I did my PhD in Madison, so you know, I know the area very, very well.
Because this year I'm going to go before, because usually I always fly into Minnesota. I'm going to stop in Minnesota to go see Paisley Park, go pay my respects to Prince, and then I'm going straight to WisCon. So if you ever get a chance, come through, even if it's just for Friday.
You don't know, I will. As a matter of fact, by you have saying this, I will. And if you don't mind, think about reminding me, you know, like a month out.
But yes, when the time comes.
Yeah, because I'll come up there. You know, Wisconsin's not bad. I don't, you know, I'll see if I can get the ankle bracelet off for the weekend, and I'll come on up and check you out. Okay.
Okay. Everybody else, you can always hit me up on Twitter under What Fresh Hell Is This? And on the Twitter feed, I'm always there under the Saturday Night Sci-Fi tag. I'm always on there. Hit me up. Shenanigans.
Yeah, and if you're going to look for Lisa, if you don't have, you know, if you're picking this up as a podcast, the spelling of her last name, Bolekaja. So Lisa, and I'm going to do this again. Bolekaja. And please, you know, everybody stay in touch with some of these outstanding people that we have, because by banding together and knowing each other and networking together, we're all going to benefit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm going to call. Let's see. I'm going to see if Jarvis is around so he can close out the show. Again, thanks a lot. We're going to meet eventually. You know that.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want you to know that I'm a lot. I'm a little too. I'm too short for my weight, but I'm okay. Jarvis, what's up?
Oh, as always, I'm being silly. Hello?
Yeah, we hear you.
Oh, love, peace, and hair grease. But
okay.
Thank you all for participating on the show. There was a lot of great information, and there was some really great energy coming from, you know, the information and the experience being shared with us. I love that type stuff. I really do. Mm-hmm. And I try to emulate that wherever possible. As William said, please come onto the site and share what you're doing with us on there so that we can support it, whatever that is. And that's for events, for different projects that you're working on. And our goal is to continue to share and spread the word about what people are doing, particularly our members, not just our members, but particularly the members of the site.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, William, for making everything entertaining as always. And Lisa, thank you for all of your support for these, how many years? This 5 years now?
Woo, since you guys got started, when it was like maybe 120 of us, we were members, and that's how we joined in. The OGs.
Oh, yeah. We're up to like roughly 5,000 on the site, and give or take a few spammers that we had to get off of there. But we're on 10,000 on our page on Facebook. We're at 6,000 on our Twitter. We're at almost 9,700 people on our group on Facebook. So trying to make sure that we cover our different bases on the different social media. And so I like the fact that you were talking about different social media platforms, because those are different advertising avenues, because some people like Twitter, some people like Instagram, some people like Facebook. And so by being on there and having a representation, you can meet those people where they are.
Right.
Okay. So thank you for sharing all that great information. I can't wait to have you on again when you have some more good stuff for us.
Yeah, I'll be ready to gossip again, especially when I come back next year from Helsinki. When I come back from Thor World and I come back and tell y'all, okay, y'all, this is what went down in Helsinki.
Well, you know, by you discussing it that way, I'm now reconsidering going. You know, I'm thinking about it. You know, it wouldn't be horrendously expensive. You know, obviously it's going to be a lot more expensive than just running across the border to Madison, Wisconsin. but since they laid out the red carpet for me to come in to moderate some panels, to talk to some people, and why not bring that diversity with me?
Yeah, sometimes we have, like I said,
Finland.
get that money and come on out, be seen and come out and meet some folks and just sometimes you got to just take that plunge and go. Like, I don't know nobody in Helsinki, but I'm going.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I want to wish everybody a good weekend and a good week ahead. We're here every Friday night. We usually start right up at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And I look forward to having other people check us out. And those of you who check us out as a podcast, I appreciate your participation and your patronage as well. So on behalf of Lisa and Jarvis, I want to wish everybody a good evening.
Good night,
all right,
everybody.
good night. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.